Hey everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel, and I'm so excited to do my June wrap-up with you guys. Can you guys believe we're all the way through June already? Like, that's just crazy to me. But I'm excited because I had a really good reading month, which I wasn't expecting, but I had some books this month that, like, are going on my all-time favorite list, which I haven't had that in a while, so I'm super excited to talk through some of these with you guys. If you do hear popping in the background, you are hearing my neighbors blowing things up because it is a few days from the 4th of July, so people are celebrating with their fireworks early. Yeah, I don't know. So if you hear things blowing up, don't worry about it. Everything's okay over here. It's just fireworks. We'll all survive. Alright, so I read a whopping 17 books for the month of June. I know, that's a lot of books for the month. And I rediscovered audiobooks, which is why my number was so high, because I haven't really been able to read a lot because life has just been so busy, but I rediscovered audiobooks and it has been life-changing. I've been able to get through several books in a week because I've been listening to them rather than actually sitting and reading them. So that's why I have 17 books that I've read this month. So I'm going to kind of start off with a couple of things. I'm going to start off with my DNFs. I'm going to do a quick run through of the first half of the month, which you guys can see in more detail with my mid-month wrap up, and then we'll go into more detail with the last half of the month. This is going to probably be a long video because I did a lot of reading. Alright, let's start with the 3 DNFs so we can get them out of the way. One of them I mentioned in my mid-month wrap-up video, so I'll just do a brief talk about it. It was The Director by Renee. I DNF'd this book because it has 2 things I really, really hate. The first one is a secret baby trope, and the second one was BDSM. And I'm sorry, but if you're spanking people, I'm out. I'm not into that. It's not what I read. I didn't finish it. The second book I DNF'd was called Trey, The European Redemption by Shandi Boys. This is actually book 7 of a series, which I didn't realize it. It was one of those things that got emailed out in BookBub, and so I downloaded it, but I didn't realize it was part of a series. So this is basically a woman who gets rescued from a sex trafficking ring, and you keep thinking that, like, oh, how great, she gets rescued and she's going to go with this new person, blah, blah, blah. But then she gets rescued by a person that also has a sex trafficking ring. I don't understand. Like, it was very violent. It was hard to get through. There were a lot of scenes of, like, things that were not her choice, almost rapey kind of things. I got maybe 30% through the book, and I was like, this is a bad rape fantasy, and I just can't do it. So I did not finish the book, and if somebody made it through the whole book and wants to tell me if it gets better, let me know, but I could not finish it. It was too much. And then the third book I DNF'd was called Prince with Benefits by Nicole Snow. And you know, I love anything with royalty, so when it said Prince, I was like, I'm in, I'm all in, yeah, I'm out. Way too much sex scenes in this book. They weren't even real sex scenes, but they were like these long drawn out paragraphs. They would be like, we're at a press conference and she bent over and I saw her butt, and then it would be like 2 or 3 paragraphs about like what he wants to do to her butt. And I'm just like, you know, y'all need to get yourselves under control. No normal person walks around like that, talking about stuff like that. They just don't. Even in their head, like, no, that's not normal. You need to get control of yourself. So I made about 30% way through that book, and I DNF'd that one as well. So not a huge fan of either of those books, but I gave them a try, and it was a hard no. Hard no. Alright, quick review. I'm going to just run through the first 7 books of the month that I read. But if you want to know more detail about these books, then click up here to see the mid-month wrap-up, where I talk about these in a lot more detail than I will do now. First book I read this month was Royal Games by T.K.Leigh. I gave that one 5 stars. Second one was Tangled Games by T.K.Leigh. I gave that one 5 stars. Third one was Devil You Hate by J.L. Beck and C. Hallman. I gave that one 1 star, and I came very close to DNFing, but I did not, so 1 star. The next 2 were from the Ice Planet Barbarians series by Ruby Dixon. The first one was Ice Planet Barbarians, obviously. Second one was Barbarian Alien. I gave the first book 4 stars and the second book 3 stars. The 6th book I read was called The Duke's Bride in Disguise by Claudia Stone. Really liked this one. I gave this one 5 stars. And then the 7th book I read was called Vow of Deception by Rina, and I gave that one 3 stars. Again, if you want to see more details, then you can go back at my mid-month wrap-up video. So, 8 through 17 we're going to go through now, and let me tell you, this last half of June had some excellent books in it that I cannot wait to tell you about. Alright, The number 8 was called Beloved by Emma Knight. This one I listened to on audiobook. I gave it 3.5 stars. It is a vampire romance, and in this story you have Ethan, who is the son of a vampire, like, coven leader. They call him a coven leader. And he spends his evening watching this young doctor. It takes place in Chicago. She's working at Northwestern. And she goes out on her break every night. And she, like, eats and she chats with friends and just takes her little break. And he becomes really fascinated by her, so he watches her take her break every night. Well, then one night she ends up being attacked by a shifter, and he saves her. And he ends up talking his father into letting him go undercover at the hospital with her to find out why she was being attacked by Shifter and why she was targeted. And it's a whole bigger story about, like, multiple different paranormal species and, like, why shifters are turning on the vampires. It's part of a series. It was okay. The romance between them was just okay. It was just, everything was just, it was okay. You know what I mean? Like, nothing really, like, made me want to read the rest of the series. And nothing was really wrong with it. It was just okay. So 3.5 stars. Number 9. I loved this one. Confess by A. Zavarelli. This is a new author for me. I have not read any of her books until now. And OMG, this book was 5 stars. I loved this book so much. I'm just going to, like, read what I wrote and, like, you know, fawn over this book for a while. So, you have Lucian West, who is a ruthless attorney that everyone hates because he's known for defending people who are criminals. But the trick is that Lucian isn't actually defending criminals at all. He is actually just... Why is it telling me to take out the trash? I don't want to take out the trash. It's not my trash day. Anyway, he defends people that are wrongly accused or that he feels are wrongly accused. So it's weird because everybody else hates him because they think he's defending criminals, but he's actually defending people who are being wrongly accused. So he's a really good guy. The girl in the book, her name is Gypsy, and she is a con artist. She is on the run due to some things that have happened in her past that I won't go into detail about because that's a spoiler. But she is on the run from something that happened in her past, and she lives her life as a con artist. So she finds a man, gets him to like her a lot, and cons him out of a lot of money, and then takes off and finds the next man to con. So that's how she goes through life. Well, one day, Lucian goes to Gypsy and tells her, hey, I have some questionable photos of your sister following in your footsteps, and unless you agree to marry me, I'm going to turn these into the police and get your sister in trouble. And so, obviously, Gypsy's like, no, of course, I'll do whatever. And he actually talks her into marrying. Now, I never was able to figure out, like, why he chose Gypsy for this. It's not really explained in the book. So I don't know if it happens later on, because I know there's a second book, but it's not about them, it's about the sister. So I don't know if that gets explained later on. I'm not sure. But I will tell you, I loved the story. There is a trigger warning in here for death from a terminal illness. This book made me cry. Several times made me cry. And there's a lot of twists and turns. There's tons of character development from both characters. One section of the book just absolutely guts me. And I'm just telling you, this book is an emotional roller coaster. It's really, really good, really, really well written, and this makes me want to read a lot of A. Zavarelli works because the way she wrote this, I was like, wow, this is really, really good and well thought out plot. So 5 stars, and I can't wait to read more of her work. Number 10 was The Bargain by Mary Jo Putney. I ended up listening to this one on audiobook again, and this one I gave 5 stars as well. This one is a historical romance, which I really enjoyed. You have Lady Jocelyn Kendall, who has to marry before a certain age due to a clause in her father's will, and she basically has to get married in order to, like, keep all of the money and the house that she lives in and all that, and it's a few weeks out from her being able to do this, and she's going to lose everything if she doesn't get married. Well, there's been a war, and she's desperate to find someone she's married, so they end up going to... There's been a war. I can't remember what war this was. I don't know if it's like Napoleon. I don't remember what the exact time period of this is, but there's a war going on and soldiers coming back from war that are injured. Well, her and a friend decide to go to a soldier's hospital to visit a friend of theirs who got injured in the war. And while there, she meets David Lancaster, who is dying of his wounds, and she sits with him for a few minutes because he's friend of the friend or whatever. And he's dying of his wounds, and he's very, very troubled because he has a younger sister who is going to be alone when he dies, and she'll be penniless and she'll have nothing. Meanwhile, you have, Lady Jocelyn, who's got all this money that her father left her, and so she has this idea, well, if we get married right now and you pass away and stuff, but I'm married, if I'm married, I get to keep my father's money. So in order to make a deal with you, agree to marry me on your deathbed, and then after you pass away, I will make sure that your sister is taken care of, and I will pay her like a stipend or whatever every year, annuity, I don't know what's called, and make sure that she gets a yearly amount of money from me so she's taken care of. So he agrees, and he's relieved, and they get married, and she goes home knowing that he'll probably pass away. But there's a problem. He doesn't pass away. You saw that one come, didn't you? Me too, but it was really well written. What I loved about this book was watching them fall in love. It was a very, very slow build up, because obviously she doesn't expect him to live. He is expected to pass away. They weren't really expecting to end up married, but they both decided to go into this with open hearts and to decide to really work through this. So it was really fun to watch them get to know each other and get to fall in love and to see it turn into an actual love story. The heroine is a little bit unlikable at the beginning of the book, which I think is what works really well for her, because as you see her grow as the book goes on and she becomes this likable character, it's just really neat to see her growth. Also, there's this really cool twist about David towards the end of the book that I won't ruin for you, but it just added an extra layer of really coolness to the story. So I just really liked this book a lot. I think it might be an older book, and I haven't read a lot of Mary Jo Putney, but I really enjoyed this one. Number 11 was another audiobook. Again, I got through a lot of audiobooks because I rediscovered my love for them. It's The Contract by Melanie Moreland. Another 5-star read. I'm telling you, I had such a good last half of my month. I loved this book so much, and it's so predictable, but when I tell you this is one of the best versions of this trope I have ever seen in my life. It's a fake dating story, but it's the best fake dating story I think I've ever read. And that's not exaggerating. I'm being honest. It's the best fake dating story I think I have ever read. And it's Richard and Catherine. He is a very high-profile attorney, and Catherine is his assistant. And he has been passed on by a promotion of some kind in the company, and he's really mad about it. So in order to get back to them and to prove that I can be better than you, he decides to try to get hired by a rival law firm. The problem is that this other rival law firm, which is the other top firm in this city that they're in, is very family oriented. They're all about family values, and your family comes first, and being a family man. And he's known as being a jerk. He's mean to everybody. He's mean to his assistant. He's mean to his girlfriends. He's mean to everybody. So he knows that the only way that he can possibly get in their good graces is to basically fake he's a changed man. So he goes to Catherine, who everybody knows is his assistant, and he's like, hey, I need you to pretend to be my fiance so that I can convince these people that I'm leaving this company because we love each other and we can't date. We're not allowed to date in the same company. And he comes up with this whole elaborate story about how they can fake that they're in a relationship and that he's going to pay her money and all this stuff in order to be his fake fiance. Well, as you know, this trope, as it always happens with this trope, they fall in love in real life. But it is so cool to watch him go from this unlikable jerk that everyone hates, including the reader. You're just we're going to smack him upside the head because he's such a jerk. But you get to see how he changes and learns to love. And without ruining too much of the plot, he had a really bad childhood, which is why he's kind of closed himself off from loving or allowing himself to be loved. And that's why he's the jerk that he is. So to see her kind of get past all of that and get through his rough exterior was really fun. And I so enjoyed this book. This is actually one of my top favorites, I think, as well, of the years. And then the 12th book I read was a follow-up to that. It's just called The Baby Clause by Melanie Moreland. It's a very, very, very short continuation of the marriage contract one, the contract, whatever it's called, the last one. And it's just basically about them having their baby. So it's 5 stars, but just a cute little bonus story about their romance. Okay, 13 and 14. 13 was Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark. That was part of the Brutal Birthright series. This is another mafia series. This one's about several different mafias. This one's Italian and Irish. I gave this one 4 stars. You have the man in the book who is part of the, what's his name? Can't remember his name, but anyways, he's part of the Irish mafia. She's part of the Italian mafia, and one day she breaks into a party at their house just for shits and giggles, basically, just for the fun of it, and she accidentally sets the house on fire, which the two families are fighting anyway, so obviously this does not go over well, and the parents are like, have this big meeting, and they're like totally, expecting it to be like this huge war, and the parents are like, well, we're gonna make you guys get married, because the families need to stop fighting and killing each other. Let's just cause peace between the two families by stopping the fighting, and we're gonna do that by you two getting married. Obviously it's like a hate to love trope or an enemies to lovers trope. I really liked this one. It was fun to see the arguing and the fighting turn into like more playful bantering, and then for them to actually fall in love at the end. I also love that this heroine is a Spitfire and is a really strong woman. She's not sitting at home waiting for her big bad mafia husband to like rescue her and stuff. She's a feisty lady, and I loved seeing like a more like feisty character type thing in this series. So I really like this book, 4 stars. But my favorite book in this series so far is the second one, which is called Stolen Heir. And this was my 5-star, and as soon as I tell you why, you'll know why. It's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It's very loosely based on Beauty and the Beast, and as you guys know, it's my favorite fairy tale of all time is Beauty and the Beast. This is definitely an enemies to lovers, and I loved it. So you have Nessa, who's the youngest daughter of the Irish mafia boss, and she's been very, very sheltered and innocent. She's like ballerina. She's starting her first year of college, and she's super, super sheltered. I mean, this chick is sheltered. Innocent girl. Doesn't know a lot about life. Then you have Mikołaj, who is the leader of the Polish mafia, and this dude has been through the ringer. He has a lot of past history with his sister being raped and then committing suicide and having bad situation in Poland. He came out of poverty. He came out of a really rough childhood and has basically worked his way up into the ranks of the Polish mafia. Well, the Irish mafia and the Italian mafia, after the two families joined forces in the last book with the marriage, ended up killing his father, who is the guy who took him in after his crappy childhood and kind of brought him into the Polish mafia. And so he wants, basically like restitution, or what's the word I'm looking for? Revenge. There you go, not restitution. He wants revenge against them. So he has the intention of kidnapping Nessa and then basically killing her. I mean, that's his whole intention. He uses her as a pawn, and then at the end his idea is that he's going to kill her. But obviously they fall in love. And what I love about this so much is he's so mean to everybody else, and she slowly gets him to like get back in touch with his feelings. And one of the things that she really taps into is that this love he has for his sister. His sister was his twin. They were very close, and she taps into this. And he actually at one point in the book says that like she has a goodness in her, and that she brings out the goodness that's left in him, and that she reminds him of like the pure heart that his sister had. And I think that's one of the things he loves so much about her. So 5 stars. I actually really, really am looking forward to reading the next books. I'm actually probably a lot of my July reading list is going to be finishing the rest of the series, because I want to read. There's 6 books. I have 4 more to get through, and I actually just started. The other ones. So actually, you guys, I only have 16 books. I realize I have a book on here twice. I put the baby clause on here twice, so 16 books. But anyways, long story short, 15 was Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. If you missed my review, then click up here. I have a whole review about this book where I gush about how much I love it. This book is 5 million stars. 5 million stars. Anyway, loved it. And you can go watch my review if you haven't seen it already. Number 16, because Mary can't count, was The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea by Amelia Wilde. I did not like this book at all. Well, maybe partially. I gave it 2 stars. So the premise is good. The execution is poor. So the storyline itself is actually really, really interesting. It's a woman who's on a yacht with her boyfriend. I'm reading my notes. She really wants to break up with him. She doesn't like the boyfriend all that much. He's kind of a conceited jerk. And she has every intention of breaking up with him when they get back to mainland. But while she's on the trip, he gets in trouble with a drug dealer because he has been dealing drugs and doing drugs and being a horrible person. And so they shoot him and kill him in front of her, and then they throw her overboard, thinking that, she's in the middle of the ocean, so she's going to die. Well, she ends up getting rescued by Poseidon. Yes, Poseidon, like the Greek god Poseidon. That guy. And you think that, like, it's going to be this sweet, like, he rescues her and he saves her and they fall in love, and he has to, like, tell her that, oh, I'm the god of whatever, the god of the ocean or whatever Poseidon's the god of. Yeah, no, he treats her like crap. He's a jerk. In the whole book, he's a jerk. And treats her poorly, uses her as, like, a tool to try to get money off her father, so he tries to hold her for ransom. I mean, it kind of, towards the end of the book, you have this part where she, like, suddenly decides that she loves him, but he's done absolutely nothing to make her like him at all. So it's almost like a really bad case of Stockholm Syndrome, pretty much. Because he treats her like poop, and then there's one scene in the book where he literally whips her on the deck. Like leather whip, like, whips her. And I'm just like, why? Like why? Why was that necessary? And why would you be in love with somebody who would whip you with a whip like that? Like, it's not even like, kinky 50 Shades of Grey whip. It's like straight up, you didn't do what I told you to do, so I'm whipping you until there's blood. Whipping. I'm not into that. That's not attractive. That's not even hot. That's weird and creepy, and you need to be in jail for being an abuser. And it ends on a cliffhanger. But honestly, I hated the characters. She was a weak Stockholm Syndrome-esque lady. He was a big fat jerk. And I just have no intention of finishing anything else in the series. I tried to push through this book, just really hoping that at some point it would, like, that he would redeem himself, or that she would, like, grow a pair. But, it never happened. I don't know why this is considered romance, because it really did not feel like romance to me. Didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars only because I thought the storyline was great. So, like, the storyline had so much promise in it. Like, how cool would that have been? You don't see a lot of books about, like, Greek gods and goddesses. But, man, the whole whipping thing, I was out. Out. No, thank you. You come at me with a whip, it's going down. Going down. Those were the books I read for the month of June. Again, I am excited to get into July. I'm going to talk a little bit about my reading goals for July in the next video. It's not going to be like a full July TBR, because I don't like to do a straight TBR, because you never know. Sometimes you come up with things that, like, you really want to, I don't know, read that are different. But I'll go through it in the next video. This was a long one. Let me know what you read in June. I had a really good reading month. I'm so excited I had 5-star books. So many 5-star books. It was great. I don't know. It's going to be hard to top this month. Hard to top this month. Alright, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.